I'm guessing, conferred with the Department of Justice, because you're named on this lawsuit, sir. These are all the transactions from the president as well, that I'm going to ask you this next question as well. Or is this only for President Trump and his affiliates?
Senator, do you have specific knowledge that President Trump's being audited?
Sir, I have specific knowledge of this addendum that you don't know a damn thing about. That is for the Department of Treasury that your lawyer at the Department of Justice signed you up for. President Trump and his kids and anyone affiliated with him, I don't know if it's current wives, former wives, people that just did transactions with him, they're off scot-free. That, you know, that has a new way, a new ring to it, this is scot-free, because the Department of Treasury and the IRS is not going to go after him, sir. This is wrong. This is lawless. You're telling me as the Secretary of U.S. Treasury, you don't know that the President of the United States, who I think you work for, got a sweetheart deal from the Department of Justice, who's your lawyer.
I do know.
You're in line for the presidency, Scott. Scott, you should apologize to the American people for fleecing them and giving this away to Donald Trump, man. That's what you should do.
You could see it happen in real time during that hearing. The atmosphere shifted completely when Senator Ben Ray Luján leaned in with his questions. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent's entire demeanor changed. He looked genuinely rattled. Here's a man who runs the IRS and sits sixth in line for the presidency, yet he appeared completely caught off guard. These are the same people who constantly tell Americans that everyone must follow the rules and nobody gets special treatment. But watch what happens when questions turn to Donald Trump. Suddenly all those principles disappear.
In my administration, I'm going to enforce all laws concerning the protection of classified information. No one will be above the law.
Regular Americans get hammered by the IRS over a few $100. Meanwhile, the most powerful person in the country and his entire circle just got handed a massive break, funded by your tax money. And the person in charge of the Treasury? He sat there looking uncomfortable, avoiding eye contact, acting like this massive deal has nothing to do with him.
If I'm elected president, we are going to drain the swamp in Washington, D.C.
What Senator Luján just exposed is only scratching the surface. This preferential agreement goes much deeper than anyone initially realized, and it's protecting more people than you'd think.
Thank you. Senator Luján.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Secretary Bessent, should Americans who illegally evade their taxes be investigated and prosecuted?
Yes.
Secretary Bessent, should people and organizations facilitating money laundering for Iran, North Korea, or Hamas be prosecuted?
Yes.
What about laundering money for Mexican drug cartels?
Yes.
Should a person who traded and profited on insider information be prosecuted?
According to the law, they should.
Appreciate that. Mr. Secretary, as a result of President Trump's $10 billion lawsuit, the Department of Justice, on behalf of your department, settled with President Trump by creating a $1.776 billion slush fund to pay for his supporters and criminals. Were you either directly or through your staff asked to sign the original agreement?
Senator, you were not here at the early part of the meeting.
I saw you on TV.
Well, congratulations, and you would know that I'm unable to answer those questions, and they should be referred to
Mr. Secretary.
General.
Senator Luján started smart, not with accusations, but with basic principles. He got the Treasury Secretary to agree, on the record, that tax cheaters should face prosecution. Money launderers working with Iran, North Korea, Hamas, drug cartels, all should be prosecuted. Insider traders too. For straight times, Bessent agreed, the law applies to everyone, no exceptions. Then Luján brought up the $1.776 billion settlement, and you could feel the room go cold. Suddenly, Bessent couldn't answer basic questions about an agreement made by his own department. Ask the Attorney General, he kept repeating, as if the Treasury Secretary has no authority over his own agency. That deflection tells you everything. Scott Bessent happily agrees that laws apply to all Americans, until someone asks about the man who gave him his job. Then the answers vanish, he looks away, and his words fall apart.
This is going to be the only question I'll take on this matter today. So there's ongoing litigation, so it'd be inappropriate for me to comment. President Trump is a great American who has endured more than 10 years of nonstop harassment and weaponization from the federal and state government actors. A bad actor at the IRS leaked more than 400,000 tax returns, including the Trump family, all the employees, and that's how we got here now. No American should be targeted for political reasons, and every citizen deserves fair treatment and full protection of the law. The Department of Justice represented Treasury and the IRS in this matter, and I'm going to have to refer any questions to Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche.
A conflict of interest built into the system. Here's where it gets really messy. The Department of Justice represents the Treasury in this case. That means Bessent's own government lawyer, Attorney General Pam Bondi, negotiated a settlement that directly benefits the president who appointed both of them. When Bessent says, "I wasn't in the room," that's not a defense. It's an admission that decisions affecting the president's tax situation were made without oversight from the person legally responsible for tax enforcement. This isn't a bureaucratic mistake. This is a protection system working exactly as designed. One rulebook for Donald Trump and his people, a completely different one for you.
What about the addendum to this agreement? Are you familiar with what the addendum is?
I'm not sure what you're referring to.
Are you familiar with this giveaway from the IRS that says President Trump and anyone that knows him or does business with him or part of a business, they get off scot-free? Are you aware of this?
Again, I refer you to Attorney General Blanche.
Are you Attorney General Blanche's client?
The IRS and Treasury are a client of the Department of Justice.
So is that a nice way of saying yes? You're a client, he's your lawyer.
He represents.
You're the secretary, are you the Secretary of Treasury? Yes is the answer.
The Department of Justice.
Scott Bessent, let me ask you this question, sir. Are you the Secretary?
In my personal capacity, Todd Blanche is not my attorney.
Correct, sir. Are you, sir,
for the
Mr.
U.S.
Secretary,
Treasury?
Scott, let me ask it this way. Scott, are you the Secretary of Treasury for the United States government?
Yes.
Appreciate that. The Department of Justice represents the IRS and the Department of Treasury in this lawsuit, correct?
Correct.
Are you aware of this addendum? You're telling me DOJ gave the president this without you knowing about it?
Again, they settle on our
All right,
behalf.
well, that's not how the law works, sir. I'm not a lawyer, but you have a bunch of them behind you. You should see the faces they're making at me behind you. They're all scowling at me back over here.
Well, I think that's a different reason, sir.
Well, for whatever it is, they're doing it. Mr. Secretary, my concern is that this addendum's not been getting a lot of attention. There's colleagues on this panel that think this slush fund is a bunch of bullshit. And they've called out to say, get rid of it. Now, people need to say, are you okay with one person in America, because the Secretary of Treasury, I'm guessing, conferred with the Department of Justice, because you're named on this lawsuit, sir. These are all the transactions from the president as well, that I'm going to ask you this next question as well. You were bragging to one of my colleagues that you've been sanctioning people doing bad things in America. People that get sanctioned, like Iran or terrorists, they're told not to do business in the United States with partners. Is that your understanding, sir, me as a layman?
It is.
You hold these bad people accountable. I congratulate you for that. So this little giveaway to President Trump and his family gets them off scot-free. Does every American become part of this addendum? If someone didn't pay their taxes or violated tax law or did bad things, are they told, can't prosecute you, you're good? Everyone going back to the date of this, or is this only for President Trump and his affiliates?
Senator Luján cornered Bessent with the most important question of the entire hearing, and the response was silence. He made the secretary confirm that the DOJ represents both the IRS and Treasury. He made him admit he's the client. Then came the critical question, are you seriously telling me the DOJ gave the president this protection without consulting you? Bessent's answer was pure bureaucratic dodge. They settle on our behalf. As if the Treasury Secretary is just a bystander in his own department. As if the person responsible for collecting the nation's taxes can simply shrug when his own lawyers create a special exemption for Donald Trump and everyone connected to him. Let's be clear about what this really is, a personalized immunity shield around one individual. Trump spent years attacking elites and promising to drain the swamp, yet his administration quietly built the ultimate insider privilege, a formal written guarantee that the IRS will give him, his kids, his ex-wives, and his business associates a pass. The same president who demands harsh treatment for everyone else has secured himself a permanent exemption from tax scrutiny, managed by the very department he controls. Bessent's defense only makes sense if you accept that a cabinet secretary can be bound by agreements he never even looked at. In any other context, that would end someone's career. Here, it's treated as normal.
Today, I'm proud to announce that we've taken decisive action against the Sinaloa cartel, one of the most notoriously violent criminal and drug trafficking organizations in the world. Our administration is committed to cutting off their funding and neutralizing the threat through all available tools.
The Justice Department, supposedly independent, is cutting deals that protect the president who picked the Attorney General. The Treasury Secretary answers to that same president. The circle is complete. They've designed accountability right out of the system. Meanwhile, Bessent proudly talks about freezing out cartels and foreign enemies from the financial system. Yet that same powerful machinery has carved out a special exception for the Trump network. One set of rules for regular people, another for the man at the top. The more Luján pushed, the clearer the protection scheme became, and the more desperately they tried to avoid the truth.
Senator, do you have specific knowledge that President Trump's being audited?
Sir, I have specific knowledge of this addendum that you don't know a damn thing about. That is for the Department of Treasury that your lawyer at the Department of Justice signed you up for. The reason I'm asking this question is because President Trump's sons signed a deal, as you know, with World Liberty Financial, with a bunch of folks you sanctioned. And now, as part of this, there's an addendum that says President Trump and his kids and anyone affiliated with him, I don't know if it's current wives, former wives, people that just did transactions with him, they're off scot-free. That, that has a new way, a new ring to it, this thing, scot-free, because the Department of Treasury and the IRS is not going to go after him, sir. This is wrong. This is lawless. I hope our colleagues will look at this addendum. If I could offer this into the record, Mr. Chairman, for those that haven't seen it yet.
Without objection.
Come on, man. There's a better way of doing this, sir. That's all we're saying here. So, look, I appreciate it if you don't want to talk about a lawsuit. That's your prerogative to answer that way. But to say that you as a client, as Secretary of the U.S. Treasury, does not know what the Department of Justice is giving away to people, come on, man. That's just not on the up and up, sir. I hope we can do better. You
don't understand the way the protocol works, and we receive advice and accept their settlements.
You're telling me as the Secretary of U.S. Treasury, you don't know that the President of the United States, who I think you work for, got a sweetheart deal from the Department of Justice, who's your lawyer.
I do know.
You're in line for the presidency, Scott.
I do know that the President of the United States and 400, many of his employees had the largest tax leak in history. And I know.
Here's his filing, sir, of all the insider trading. Right here.
Do you want to apologize on behalf of the American government?
Scott, you should apologize to the American people for fleecing them and giving this away to Donald Trump, man. That's what you should do.
We can agree to disagree.
Senator Warnock.
That we'll agree on.
This goes way beyond one hearing or one legal document. What Senator Luján exposed is the deliberate construction of a personal legal fortress around Donald Trump, something no regular American would ever receive. For years, we've been told the presidency is about public service, not personal protection. That whoever sits in the White House still has to follow the same laws as everyone else. That tax enforcement and financial accountability apply equally to all. This settlement proves those principles were abandoned the moment they conflicted with one family's interests. Trump didn't just get a favorable outcome. He received a structural advantage built directly into the federal government. While millions face audits, penalties, and prosecution for far smaller issues, the most powerful person in the country and his associates got a formal exemption. That's not leadership. That's turning public power into private protection. This comes from the same political movement that spent a decade demanding law and order. The same voices calling for maximum punishment for protesters, immigrants, political opponents, and everyday taxpayers. But when it comes to the president's own financial exposure, the rules vanish. The system that's supposed to be blind suddenly sees perfectly when it comes to one name and goes conveniently blind for everyone else. Future presidents will study this moment and learn an important lesson. If you control the right appointments, pressure the right agencies, and bury the details in obscure documents, you can create your own immunity zone. The tax code becomes optional for those at the top. Accountability becomes just a talking point. And the public learns that the law isn't a shared standard, it's a weapon used selectively based on power. Future presidents will study this moment and learn an important lesson. If you control the right appointments, pressure the right agencies, and bury the details in obscure documents, you can create your own immunity zone. The tax code becomes optional for those at the top. Accountability becomes just a talking point. And the public learns that the law isn't a shared standard, it's a weapon used selectively based on power. Scott Bessent's performance only confirms the problem. A cabinet secretary whose department is directly involved can't just point fingers at the attorney general and claim he didn't know. That's not being cautious. That's surrendering your responsibility. When the people supposed to enforce the rules refuse to take responsibility for those rules, the entire system starts looking like an act. Americans aren't stupid. They notice when powerful people get protections never offered to them. They notice when politicians who campaign on fairness quietly create exceptions for themselves and their friends. They notice when nobody is above the law is just a campaign slogan, not an actual principle. This agreement doesn't just protect Trump's past. It signals that his current and future financial activities will receive special treatment. It tells every business partner, every associate, every family member that the full power of federal tax enforcement won't touch them. That's a form of immunity no law ever authorized and no voter ever approved. If this stands without consequences, the damage will last far beyond any single administration. Trust in the IRS, already shaky, will erode even more. Trust in equal justice will take another permanent hit. And the next time a president faces scrutiny, the escape route will already be mapped out. Senator Luján did what too few are willing to do. He refused to look away. He forced the contradiction into the open and demanded answers from those responsible. The question now is whether the rest of the political system will do the same, or whether they'll decide once again that some people are simply too powerful to be held to the standards they impose on everyone else. The facts are now public. The protection is documented. The double standard is impossible to deny. What happens next will show the country whether the law still means anything when it conflicts with Donald Trump's interests. Drop a comment and tell me if you think this deal should be investigated or quietly buried. And if you want more coverage that doesn't look away, hit subscribe.